Okay, I'm sick of this. How are hackers hacking us? I see these big companies that I think have really good security, like these big beefy security teams, and they're still getting hacked. Why? How? I think I know why. It's the developer's fault. It's the programmer's fault. What? Yes, it is.
It's impossible to deploy 100% secure code.
Because most of the time when hackers hack a company, when they attack them, they attack the application, the code the developers write.
Most of the world's greatest exploits that have happened in the last 5 years have been application-based.
And the reason this is so effective, get this, most developers don't know how to write secure code.
Universities don't teach writing secure code. They don't teach about vulnerabilities and exploits. They don't.
And the problem is getting worse. We're writing more code and we're writing it faster.
More code means more vulnerabilities. That's just the nature of the beast. So
now, because we have to write code so much faster, we're doing some stupid things. And this scares the crap out of me. We're taking the burden of security, securing our apps, and we're putting that on the shoulders of our developers. That scares me. Does that scare you?
Yeah, it should scare everybody.
So in this video, we're going to unpack how in the world this happened, and why it's continuing to happen, and why it's getting worse. It's two big things, two big ideas. But don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. We're also going to talk about some of the cutting edge ways we're addressing this. We're going to look at two companies, Boxboat and GitLab, the sponsors of this video, so thank you Boxboat and GitLab. We're going to look at how they're helping companies address this crazy security issue, and it's awesome. We'll talk more about that here in a bit. But anyways, here we go. Let's see how we got here. Why hacking actually still works, why it's happening more and more, why everyone's getting hacked. Let's talk about it. Okay, here we go. Reason number one why I think all these companies are getting hacked. And again, it's the developer's fault. Because they wanted to go fast. Because once upon a time, making apps was slow, and honestly sometimes still is. Let me show you how we used to do it. So let's say I want to build my online coffee company, networkchuck.coffee, which by the way, is real. Go check it out. I hire myself the best dev team in Texas, Beatrice, Bernard, Betty, and Bob. And I put them right to work. They start developing my coffee app, this big old monolith. They code like crazy for 4 months, fueled by nothing but Network Chuck coffee. And then boom, the code is ready. They're done, right? Like we can start using that app right now. Wrong. You can't. It's a whole process. And this is where the problem starts. Stick with me, watch this. We're not even close to being done because now we have to involve the other part of IT operations, which I know and love. That's what I do. But hey, let's be honest, we're sometimes pretty slow. And here's why that is. First, the server team has to put the app somewhere. It has to live on some sort of infrastructure, and that usually is going to be a server, and that involves the server team. So we say, hey, server team, build us a server so we can host our app, and they say, next week, okay. And then we're done, right? No, because then we have the network team. Those guys are awesome. The network team has to make sure the app can connect to everything it needs to connect to. Databases, other servers, the internet. And by now you know we're not done. Don't even think we're done yet, because then you got the QC team, the quality control. Because you know what? Developers, they make mistakes. There's bugs in their code every once in a while. A lot of the while. So quality control will test the code, make sure it works. Have actual people test it. And surely we're done now, right? No, because then we have the most important piece. We got the security team. These guys are vital because let me tell you something. Most developers, they don't know how to write secure code. They know how to write good code, but most of them don't know how to write code that's free from vulnerabilities, that's looking out for all the latest stuff that can be attacked. That's why we have the security team. They look at that code and go, wow, there's a lot of holes in this thing. Let's fix it. Now, this is quite the process, right? I mean, because you've got individual teams, server teams, network teams, quality control teams, security teams, all teams of engineers. People that you have to wait on, get back to you, and often you're making changes, kind of going back and forth. So finally, in 2 years, our app is ready. I mean, hopefully not 2 years. It's usually faster than that. But this is why it's so slow. But with our right now culture, that's not going to cut it anymore. We need our apps now. We want that new feature tomorrow. We can't have an update coming out every 4 months. No, it's got to be like every day. So developers, they got faster. But they had to change a few things. And the things they changed, pretty scary. Are you ready for this? Check this out. So I tell my devs, Beatrice, Bernard, Betty, and Bob, guys, we gotta be faster. Starbucks is selling more coffee than us, and we can't have that. We're gonna beat them. So what do? Well, they do what all the cool devs are doing nowadays. They take this big monolith app, they cut it up, they look at different functions of the app and go, hey, we can actually make that its own app and make it smaller. Going from a big monolith design to a microservices design. And this is great, actually, it's fine. A lot of companies are doing this. It helps you develop and push out features faster. And I can devote my devs to one specific function or one app within my larger app. But then here comes the problem. If you really want to do microservices and make things super fast, you're probably going to start looking at containers, Kubernetes, all the new exciting stuff that is actually pretty cool and exciting. But what is that? Well, without getting too much in the weeds, because it is a big thing. instead of hosting my apps on a server that the server team might build for me, which is how we've done it forever. We're gonna go, no. Let's skip the server team. Wait, can we do that? Yeah, we can. What if instead of deploying it to a VM on a server, what if we just threw that app onto a container? They're super fast, they can spin up like lightning. Oh, and by the way, containers, Docker containers, it's a whole thing. And did I mention they're amazing? If you want to learn more about what they are and how they compare to virtual machines, I got a video right here. But anyways, we deploy our apps to these things called containers, which in a lot of cases allows our developers to go, hey, we don't need the server team anymore, because guess what? These containers, they live in the cloud. The public cloud, this mysterious place where it's just someone else's server. That's really truly all it is. So we don't need the server team, and this is the dangerous part right here, because it's in the cloud that the developers start to get all the power, and this power goes to their head. No, I'm just kidding. A little bit though. You see, the cloud's amazing, and it has a ton of tools that really equip the dev to kind of absorb the role of the server team. So buy a server team, we don't need you anymore. I can deploy containers in the cloud. Network team, who needs the network team? I can network my containers together. I can use services like Kubernetes. Again, a whole big thing. It's amazing. I got a video right here if you want to get started and start playing around with it. Now, at first glance, this is amazing, right? My developers can write the code, and instead of waiting on the server team, instead of waiting on the network team, they can simply deploy containers in the cloud, and boom, we just saved a ton of time. But this is scary. Here's why. Why do we have a server team? Well, because deploying servers is a skill. Knowing how to properly deploy a server and secure it and make it work well is its own job. That's why we have a team dedicated to it. Same goes for networking. Networking is its own thing. Knowing how to secure a network and make it work well, it's a skill, it's a job. But what we're seeing a lot of now is the job of the server team and the job of the network team. The developers are kind of taking that on. But the scary part is that they are developers. They are really good at writing code. That doesn't mean they're really good at deploying servers or deploying networks. So what can happen, and what usually does end up happening, is they deploy containers and networks that are not exactly secure, not exactly designed to best practices. And that creates a ton of opportunities for hackers to find vulnerabilities, to find weaknesses, because that's what hackers do, right? Like that's their job. They're constantly testing your applications, your networks, your servers to find any little vulnerability, any little mistake. And these developers, let's be honest, they care about their code, writing good code, and that's okay. They really don't care about securing a server or a container or a network. They just want it to work. And it may work, but just because something works doesn't mean it's secure. And something even scarier is that it doesn't even just stop at the network team and the server team. What we're seeing now is that a lot of these new shops, where they're developing code crazy fast, with their new agile mindsets, they're often baking in and automating their quality control, which is really cool, but it's really hard to do and do it well and do it right. So they might automate their testing with something called CI/CD. They will maybe try to automate their security or just skip security because they don't care. No, I'm sure they care. They care more about code or writing good code. Let me get the security team off my face real quick. Now, what I've just described here is a term called shifting left. This is a term that we often use in the development world to describe things that we do later in the process, like quality control, testing, security scans, and all that. And instead of doing that later in the process, we try to integrate that into the actual code production process. Because normally the developer would code and then just throw it over the wall. Say, hey, check this out and get back to me. Instead, we're like, hey, let's actually take care of that ourselves. Now, I like to broaden that term a bit more and say that the responsibilities of our IT operations team are actually shifting a bit left, where the developers are becoming server admins and network admins and security admins. And that's scary. So what's the answer? Well, I can tell you right now, it's not going to be, hey, let's turn our developers into security admins, or hey, let's turn our developers into server admins. Let's make them learn those skills. No. Let's let them be good at development, what they signed up for. And the answer is also not just, let's go back to the way things were, because you know what? We have to be fast. And once you go fast, you can't go slower. It's a drug. You have to keep going. So what do? Well, we need a unicorn. We need engineers with a unique set of skills. We need someone that understands the IT operations side, someone who understands security, servers, who actually knows how to use the cloud, Kubernetes, containers. But they also need to know the development side. They need to know what it's like to develop an app, what the process is like. Someone who knows how to properly shift left, automating the process of checking code quality, checking for bugs, security. And if that sounds like a lot, it is. This person's called a DevOps engineer. Dev for developer, ops for IT operations, DevOps. So yeah, easy solution, right? Just go out and hire one. Good luck. They're hard to find. It's an intense skill set. Which, by the way, if you're watching this and you're wondering, what can I do to get started in IT? What would be a very lucrative career? DevOps engineer. Yes, it's a hard thing to get into. A lot of stuff to learn. But they are rare. I've spoken with a few companies over the last few weeks, and they find it impossible to find good DevOps engineers. You just can't find them, which I know sounds dumb. Like my solution was hire a DevOps engineer, but you can't because you can't find any. Thanks, Chuck. I know, but there are other options. There are companies like Boxboat, which again is one of the sponsors of this video. DevOps is what Boxboat does. They have a whole team of unicorns. They're like a unicorn farm or ranch. I don't know, do you farm or ranch unicorns? I have no idea. And they help your developers, they help your team do DevOps properly, because it is hard. It is hard to do it well. And they can get your team up to speed on training. They can show you how to modernize your app. They'll get on a call with you, look at what you got, and say, okay, this is what we got to do. Let's automate this and do it right. Let's move you to AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and let's get your thing going. Now, the second thing that companies are doing to become faster, more agile as they're designing and deploying their code, this one's a bit scarier. Actually, it's probably scarier than the first one. And don't get me wrong, it's amazing, it's cool. But I think it's one of the biggest reasons we're seeing more hacking opportunities now. Let me explain. Again, the goals we're talking about here is we want to have more code faster. The competition's releasing update after update after update, feature after feature. We have to do the same thing. Those coffee websites, I mean, Starbucks, they're going crazy. We have to beat them. So how do we do that? Well, we change the way we write code. This is often referred to as the agile mindset. And you'll hear things like CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment, and that's what we're talking about. Traditionally, let's say Betty over here working on notifications, she has this really killer new feature update she's been working on. She codes and codes and codes, and finally it's ready, it's perfect, she thinks. And then she sends it off to be examined up the pipeline. And the process can be different for every company, but it might pop over to quality control. They'll take a look at it, see if there's any bugs. You'll have a pre-prod department that's maybe putting it into a testing environment and having a bunch of testers come in and see if it works with all these different scenarios. It can be a time-consuming process. And often this does include a security team looking at the code and making sure we're safe and secure. But that's not fast enough, not for nowadays. Now we have to be making updates constantly, and that's the idea behind Agile and CI/CD. Instead of Betty waiting until her feature was completely coded together and then sending it through all these steps and review, no. Betty, as soon as you have something ready, doesn't have to be perfect, just a little bit of code, a little update, a little tweak. Don't wait for the entire feature to be done. Just submit that sucker. In fact, let's do it in 10 minutes. Same thing for Beatrice. Beatrice, come on, go for it. Just submit your code. Submit your code, go. We'll make it live in 10 minutes, go. Bob, you're fired, dude. I gotta find another Bob. He's not doing his job. But hold on a second. How are Beatrice, Bernard, and Betty doing this? Doesn't the code have to be reviewed, checked for bugs, see if it actually works before it goes into prod, which is short for production? Just throwing that out there. Yes, it does have to be reviewed. But how can that happen in 10 minutes? Automation. Automation. With a tool like GitLab, it can do this. Actually, let me show you real quick. Let me show you Beatrice's app. Beatrice has been working on the authentication and login portion. It's written in Python. Let me show you what she's doing. GitLab is a code repository, and it's also a lot more, and we'll go into that. But basically, when coders or developers work on code, they'll use a site like GitLab to manage how they all work on it together. GitLab uses an open source technology called Git. It's a must-have skill for a developer and really most of IT right now. But basically, it allows multiple people, multiple devs to work on code and helps them to avoid conflicts and make sure that they're always working on the latest update to the code. For example, if Beatrice works on something and Bob is doing something, and make sure they don't step on their toes, make sure they both receive the latest updates. And I'm just scratching the surface, but that's basically what it does. It helps coders work on stuff together. But beyond that, GitLab does a lot more. More specifically, what I was just talking about with CI/CD, which is fancy words for I want to deploy my code right now really fast. Check it out. Here's the code for Beatrice's Python login app, my microservice. I'm going to jump into their built-in web IDE real quick and make a little code change. Nothing too crazy. Maybe the email handler. I'll add a little comment right here. Sorry, Beatrice. Once I'm done editing my code, I'll then commit the code. Clicking on commit. Here I can either commit it to a branch, which basically creates a new alternate reality with my new code without affecting the current code. Or if I'm feeling brave, I can just commit it to the master branch, which is the code, the prod code that we want to have deployed. So I'm feeling dangerous, let's do that. I'll commit it. Now what's about to happen is crazy cool automation. I mentioned that we can deploy our code within under 10 minutes, right? And skip all that QA stuff, but we're not skipping it though. We're not skipping it, don't worry. I'm gonna hop out of my IDE real quick, get back to my project, and go over to my CI/CD section and go to pipelines. Notice something real quick. Right here I have something running. Let's jump in there. What is it? Right now, there's no other word for it. This is magic. What happened is Beatrice updated her Python app, this microservice, with just a little tiny bit of code. And by Beatrice, I mean me. As soon as I committed that code, my CI/CD process went crazy. And by crazy, I mean it started. All the things we should do with our code, having people check it for bugs and quality, testing it, seeing if it actually works with the current code, if it actually works in the real world, all those things are happening right now automatically. With tools from GitLab, it's basically automating your entire DevOps process. You may have designed some unit tests to test the functionality of your app, which are amazing. You can plug those in there, it'll run those tests for you. And it also does other things like, hey, checking for code quality and a ton of other things. Now, just so you know, designing a DevOps pipeline to do this is hard. But with GitLab, it's actually not too bad. They have this thing called Auto DevOps, where they actually have just built-in features that'll scan your code and figure out the best test for it, which is pretty killer because a lot of DevOps tools, man, it's hard. You have to use like 15 different tools. You have to figure out how they work together. GitLab, man, it has all that stuff kind of just baked in. It's very automatic and very magical. And it's doing a bunch of other stuff we'll touch on here in a bit. In fact, don't look at this. This is part of the problem solution I'm presenting right now. But essentially, that's what we're doing. Now, there's a lot more into it, so much more. I'm scratching the surface, being brief on purpose. But with the agile mentality and CI/CD pipelines, which stand for continuous integration, continuous deployment, we're able to constantly deploy our new code and have it run through tests to see if it works, to check it for quality. And when it does pass these automated tests, then dude, put that out in production. Let's let some users actually test it. And if the users say it's broken, well, yeah, let's go back to the drawing board. But this helps us get our code out super, super fast. That's why you receive so many updates on your iPhone that your applications are updating. How are they doing it so fast? CI/CD. That's why Netflix looks different all the time. That's why your favorite websites are always changing, because they have this agile environment. They're constantly providing updates. And they've got these crazy CI/CD pipelines that are testing the app in real time. Tools like GitLab will actually spin up a fake environment real quick, run it through tests, check your code. It's kind of crazy. And this is precisely why this is the scariest thing in the world to me. Let me tell you why. Because I know I just talked about how amazing it was. This is terrifying though. Yes, it's very cool that we're automating this process and we can make our code deploy so much quicker. But my biggest fear is that in trying to automate and make things faster, we're actually making ourselves insecure. If we're constantly deploying lots of code, that's more opportunity for hackers to see if we have any vulnerabilities. In the old way of thinking when designing code, updates and features may not be present for 3-4 months. But now we're providing updates, possibly every 3 or 4 hours, depending on what your production's like. That's a ton of opportunity for hackers to look at your stuff as soon as it's out and see if something's broken. So while not the case for every single company, there is a trend of, again, these roles, these siloed teams, server team, the network team, the security team, and now, increasingly so, the quality control team. Their roles are moving a bit more left into the developers' hands. The developers are able to bypass a lot of these teams for the sake of being fast and agile, and they're able to push out their code quickly. But we have to ask ourselves, is that code safe? Is that code secure? Are they deploying their apps into containers that are secure? Is the networking secure? Are containers talking to all the right things? Are they talking to things they shouldn't? These are things we're kind of putting on the shoulders of our developers. And yes, there are some amazingly gifted developers who have all those skills, but a lot of them don't. They don't teach secure code in most universities. They don't teach the latest in CI/CD pipelines in most universities. So in a lot of cases, our developers have a ton of power in making sure the code is secure and their infrastructure is secure and their networking is secure. And these are probably areas that they're not really experts in, which leaves a ton of opportunity for there to be mistakes, human error, misconfigurations, and that's when hackers come in. They just scan for issues like this. So what do? How do we fix this? The answer is the same as our problem, automation. I don't think the solution should be to make our developers security engineers or to make our developers network engineers. Let them be good at coding. And if we want to be fast, we have to make sure our processes are designed in a way to make us more secure. So we need to automate security. We can use tools like GitLab to actually do this, and it's pretty cool. Check this out. We saw earlier that when Beatrice deployed an update to her Python code, her login app, that GitLab was amazing. Like, it deployed a container with Kubernetes and ran the app through a bunch of tests to make sure it worked and was compatible. But it did a lot more than that. GitLab will actually check your code to see if there are any security vulnerabilities, similar to what your security team might do. So this first one here, Bandit SAST. This one is checking for security problems. This is a static application security test for Python. ESLint SAST is doing the same thing for JavaScript, Node.js. And then something really killer is they scan your containers to see if there are any security vulnerabilities. Your container could be running a version of Alpine Linux that's out of date and has open vulnerabilities that hackers could exploit. Your container could have a variety of old versions of software installed on it that could be vulnerable to attack. So not only is your code being examined to see, hey, did you like code something dangerous? It's also checking your container. Is your container safe? This would be similar to a server team hardening a server for your application. In the microservice world, containers are your servers, and this checks your container for any open vulnerabilities. In fact, let's take a look. Let's see if I found something. If I scroll back up to the top here, I'll see a section called security. If I jump in there, dang, it found a lot. Let's narrow down my scanner to container scanning and see what it found. So this right here is CVE, which stands for Common Vulnerabilities and Exposure. Let me click on this. I found this in my container, and it could be a huge issue for me. If I click on the CVE information, it'll link me out to the official site and give me more information about what it is. And of course, beyond security, I can check out my code quality and say, okay, am I being an idiot? And seeing if my code is up to code standards or typical code standards. So GitLab does a lot for its automation. The goal here is to help with the human issue we have, and that humans are prone to manual error. Here we try to automate our security, and we get as close to the beginning of the issue as we can. The developer. When the developer deploys their code, it's being checked. It's checking its compatibility with the app. It's checking for security issues. It's checking for known vulnerabilities. And it does a whole lot more. And getting back to security, it is checking my code every time I commit my code. And you can also set up regular scheduled scans to go, hey, can you check it every once in a while? Because as you know, vulnerabilities, they are being found every day. And the code that was good yesterday might not be good today. So if I go to my security and compliance dashboard here, it's going to let me know how things are going. It give me a graph of how many criticals and highs and medium issues I have. I can look at my vulnerability report, dependency lists. It's crazy. And what's even crazier is it actually makes us faster. We can deploy our code faster. Hopefully for most companies, vulnerability issues would be caught, right? If a developer's working in something and they deploy a container and the container's insecure, the code's insecure, hopefully they have in their processes for somebody in quality assurance or control or somebody in security that will catch that. Hopefully. But that still becomes a bottleneck, right? Because then that security person has to kick that back to the dev. They then have to fix it and go through the whole process. When it's automated, the dev can be immediately notified, hey, dude, you're insecure. Fix this right now. That's a lot better than like receiving a notification from your quality team 3 weeks later for some code that you forgot you even wrote. Now, if you watched this video and thought, man, DevOps might be kind of hard to do, you're right. It is hard. It's hard to do it the right way. I mean, when you think about it, you're changing the way your entire IT department functions. You're taking the responsibilities of your IT operations team and shifting it left to your developers. And again, what you want to avoid is giving the responsibility of all these things to your developers. Don't make them become security admins. Don't make them learn networking. No. Let them be really great at code. So again, the solution should be that you have someone in the middle, a person that has a development mindset, but also knows IT operations. A DevOps engineer. Yes, they are unicorns, and yeah, they're pretty hard to find. But don't let that discourage you. There are companies like Boxboat, the sponsor of this video, who that's their job. Like that's what they do. They help companies like yourself do DevOps well. They'll hop on a call with you, look at your current application, how you're doing things, and say, hey, let's do this. Let's make it better. Let's make you more secure. Let's get you set up on GitLab. Let's create your CI/CD pipelines, and this is what you need to do in it. So definitely check out Boxboat. Links below if you want to do DevOps well. They offer DevOps help, cloud consulting, and they even offer training for all the new cool stuff that you want to start using. And when you want to move fast, which you got to move fast, you got to put your code out there quickly, there's no better option than GitLab. In fact, Boxboat works closely with GitLab. It's what they choose when they're helping people move their apps from old stuff to fast stuff. And you should definitely check them out. If you want to try it, it's free. I mean, GitLab is one of the biggest code repository websites out there. You get a lot of stuff for free with GitLab that you don't get from others like GitHub. Pretty much the entire DevOps lifecycle for free. And again, shout out to Boxboat and GitLab, the sponsor of this video. So why are all these companies getting hacked? I mean, there's definitely a variety of reasons, but I think the main thing is that they're attacking the application. They're attacking the code, which does have vulnerabilities. And for the most part, hackers aren't always reinventing the wheel, finding the newest, latest, and greatest vulnerabilities. No, they're just looking for existing ones. Does your app have existing ones? Is your developer unknowingly putting vulnerabilities into their code or their containers? That is the biggest threat I see right now. Automation's cool, automation's fast, but it also leaves a lot of room for error. Make sure you have security baked into your automation and your CI/CD pipeline. Anyways, guys, that's all I got. Whew, that's a lot of stuff. Stay safe out there. I'll catch you guys next time.